Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at an artifact PortalCraft deck. I haven't covered one of these for a while, and since we did lose a lot of artifact cards, but we did get a lot of new ones, I wanted to see how a deck like this would perform. I did take a list from one of the more popular people on Twitter. I'm trying to blank on what it was, but that is where I did find this deck. They did post a bunch of different Portal lists along with Shadow and other decks as well, which is quite handy at the start of an expansion to go on Twitter and take a look at what everyone else is theory crafting and build from there, which is usually how I handle this, but taking a 1-for-1 for this because of how well this was constructed, and I wanted to give it a solid go since it had so many nice new cards in it. So kicking us off for new cards, we have Mechagun Wielder, which is quite nice. Put a random artifact card from your deck in your hand. I like that part, and the enhance is put 2 random artifact cards from your hand and recover 7 play points. Never really used the enhance much, didn't really need it at that point, I guess, but it's definitely a nice one to have because you effectively are getting 2 artifacts for 1 cost, which is great. Then of course you have Augmentation Bestowal, which is a give you a leader flowing effect till the end of this turn. Whenever an allied artifact card comes into play, recover 1 point and draw a card. Actually insane. When you play this right, you can get so much decent draw power and recover so many play points, especially when you're using some of the new artifacts. Bifurcating artifacts are nuts. So the bifurcating artifacts, Speak of the Devil, Prototype Warrior gives you 2 of them. It's your pretty standard 2-drop 2/2 for PortalCraft, which gives you 2 artifacts into your deck. So the bifurcating artifacts are here. They are 3 cost 2/2, but it summons another one, so it's technically a 3 cost 4/4, but split over 2 bodies, which is nuts to play with. It does a wonderful job, as you're going to see in this video. Angel of the Iron Steed, I believe, is an older one, but still a really solid card and wasn't used a lot in artifact decks until really now. Alpha Core basically just floods your deck with artifacts and recovers 2 play points, so you can set this up and potentially have some extra play points to mess around with. Displacer Bot, 5-drop 4/5. Put an Acceleratium into your hand, put a random artifact from your deck into your hand, so very solid getting that Acceleratium back after we did lose that with the rotation, so definitely going to be a good one. And then of course Gullius Silver Beast Lord is just a pretty generic PortalCraft Machina. That sounds right. Wrong. I mean Machina. There we go. I got it. See, sometimes it takes me a minute. Either way, does a pretty decent job overall for what it is, and it's a rush, which is nice, and on 7 it curves into the rest of your cards fairly well. Then of course we have Worldgate, which wasn't run in a lot of decks either, but is still a solid Excel, and even a pretty solid 9-drop, but would definitely rather use it as its Excel. So we're going to get right into this deck and check it out. So the first game here is against Sword. I've always been partial to Artifact Portal, hopefully it's making a comeback. I felt like this deck was extremely solid. It does use Machina as its primary finisher, although it certainly isn't required just because of how much board flood this deck can do and how much recovery it has as far as never running out of resources. I did start off with a little bit of an awkward spot, but once we get past this turn 1 we should be fine. So Prototype Warrior being the first play does give us a fairly decent chance. Of course, Robo Golem. Golem is a whole separate thing anyway. So I did go for the Alpha Core as an extra setup for future, since I don't really need that much board space in the super early turns. It's usually once you hit turn 4 or 5 that you really start flooding at all, so I did decide to hold off on going for the bifurcating artifacts and instead go for the augmenting bestowal next turn when I can really flood an Evo well. At this point I just needed to put some bodies on the board that would be targeted for an attack. And unfortunately they've put me in a rough spot because dealing with that 4/4 is going to be super awkward. All I can really do is my best here. At least with these artifacts we should be able to recover well. So we were able to go for the bifurcating artifact very easily, and recovering the 2 play points worked even better to go for the onslaught, setting us up with a pretty impressive board on turn 5 and a very good hand considering how many draws we ended up with. And you really do need a good draw in artifact decks, so having one card that just every time you play artifacts can get you more is amazing, especially when it doesn't take up board space in an artifact deck. So displace a bot for the Acceleratium, since we want to set that up too going forward. That's why we held on to the Analyzing. It also has a reasonable body, so that's always good. Now, I probably should have went for the 7-drop here, but I did decide to instead favour the Acceleratium with these artifacts. Bifurcating Artifact is just such an amazing card. I really hope we don't see that get nerfed at all. I'm sure the artifact itself might not be nerfed. If it is, it would probably become a 2-1, which would kind of suck. Having that little bit of reliability with it is amazing for this deck so far. At least of what I've played. So really it's just a matter of flooding as much as possible for as long as possible. I did go for the early Machina setup instead in case they couldn't deal with it, and it does force them to deal with it. Fortunately, they end up conceding, but it would have at least drawn their attention for a turn, which is what I was aiming for. And for the next matchup, we are going up against Haven. I haven't seen many Haven players on ladder at the moment. Target sighted. But most of them are playing Tenko variants from what I've seen with the new Saint. And I really need to get some low drops in this hand. This actually isn't bad though. Mechanization plus the Mecha gun is really good.
Guns speak. You just gotta listen.
And overall, it didn't end up working out perfectly, but it was still reasonable. And the only thing I can really do this turn is put more artifacts into my deck. Since we've got a few decent cards here, it should be fine. It's also nice that we're not relying on Resonance at all. I was a little worried that without Desex we were going to be in trouble, but honestly, Augmentation Bestowal is amazing for doing everything that you would want Desex to normally do. Even though it is limited to one turn, you don't have to risk throwing your whole hand away and you get an amazing amount of cards, so can't really go too wrong there. And even this hand is going to be pretty great because basically every analyzing artifact is worth 2 cards, so that's going to be perfect for what we need it for. So we are looking at going for Bestowal, Analyzing Alpha Core, Triple Analyzing Alpha Core probably, since we can do that. We don't have a reason not to, and we may as well spend the Evo getting rid of this 6-3. Plus, we can also go for whatever else we need. Probably the Magistel Lion in this situation if we don't draw anything else. So we throw a bunch of artifacts into the deck, and we kind of just take whatever we want. And the Bifurcating Artifact, amazing pull right there, especially going into turn 5 and turn 6. They're going to come in very, very handy. So Salvation and Zealot of Repose. Zealot of Repose, that kind of sucks. At least we get a couple of draws, which is nice. It's going to go very, very well this turn. No, maybe not this turn, sorry, next turn. Although Agent Artifact is going to do a wonderful job of getting rid of the 0. So, that worked out. So there's the Gym Princess. So they've got a decent healing on board now. We're definitely going to be focusing on a 1-turn finisher. If they did get Exilio, we'd be in trouble. But it wouldn't be the end of the world. That's the great thing about this deck. I found that even without using the Maisha, you can go for just a wide board every turn and really pressure your opponent into using up all their resources very, very quickly. While you're just flooding artifacts, which is very easy to recover. So there we go, very good. Probably could have went for the Analyzing first, but this worked out in my favour. And using that for more draw power to get some more artifacts. Even though I only pulled 1. Just 1 artifact from the deck is more than enough most of the time. There's the Tenko and Zoe, so they are going to wipe out 3 followers this turn, which definitely hurts our bottom line. But we don't need to survive too much longer. We just need to keep putting pressure on this board. And we're actually going to get a chance to use Silver Beast. which I was worried I wasn't going to get a good chance to use, so I'm really glad that we actually got to play that. It's also another good board flooding tool. Works very well with the Machina in the long run. So Azure Maiden, not sure what they're aiming for with that draw, to be honest, since they are looking for a neutral. Probably the healing card? Interesting. So they are going to clear out at least some of this. Ideally I would like to have kept the beast, but losing it isn't the end of the world for us. So I go for the Elder Plane, just because artifacts, at this point they're free, so why not take them and trade in whatever I can. And the Augment now makes all these artifacts +2, so that's even better. So I decided to use the Howl, just because I can, and I went for the Alpha Core. I mean, they could have board locked me and left this up, but I was going to lose the Acceleratium anyway to make room for my Aisha, so overall it wasn't going to matter what my opponent did here. I was pretty much going to make the same line of play. So the Machina is now lethal at this point, well and truly. I believe it would have been well over 20 damage. Unfortunately though, I believe the opponent concedes before I actually get to play the Purgation's Blade to find out exactly how much that was worth, but based on what I had looked at before, we were well over 20 damage, so very impressed. So the Portal deck is definitely a powerful one overall, and I'm definitely going to keep playing the Artifact Portal. I am maybe considering dropping World Gate for something else that I can use in the early game, but I haven't played enough of this deck to know how I want to mess around with it yet, as I never got to use World Gate and never got to use Angel of Eye. Instead, I did get to use pretty much everything else, which is nice, and I got to use a lot of these new cards really well, so really enjoyed a lot of them. If you guys did enjoy this video and want to play this deck, please hit the like button, subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.